Hello there, folks. I'm the creator of The Deep End, and I welcome you to The Deep End Extras. Because I don't want to make 50 plus community posts. No, like, seriously. If I wanted to post every picture that I had in this presentation to the community posts, it would probably take about a month, unverified, or more. So, I figured this was a much easier way of kind of showing it off. So, without further ado, let us get right into it. So starting off, we have my hate speech Punnett square. Pretty much this goes over what I consider to be hate speech over criticism, and of course compliments too. So first off, we have with positive hate, do better, indicating not necessarily, like, obviously it is still thrown like an insult, but it is implying that, like, you do want to see it improve, you just are being kind of aggressive about it. Positive criticism being like, doing great, but have you tried using blank blank blank? You are first telling me that you did indeed like it, and then you're giving me your criticism, which is always something I appreciate. And then, of course, a positive compliment being, wow, good job. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now, neutral hate being, I've seen better. The reason why this is neutral is you are saying that you've seen better, but you didn't necessarily say that you've seen worse either. So it doesn't really come off as like you think it's bad, you just think that it's not as good as other stuff you've seen, which is completely fair, but it's still one of those things where I feel like you should probably keep that to yourself. Um, Next to it is you should have done this instead of that. Pretty much not really telling me that you liked it or hated it, you just give your criticism and go about your day. Which is something I'd read 100%. I just wish you would at least tell me if I'm doing good or not. And then a neutral compliment being not bad. You're not saying it's good, you're just saying it's not bad. Now, negative hate, the most obvious one. You suck, I hope you die. There's no other way to interpret that. You clearly do not like it, and you want to make sure I feel bad. Well, good luck, you're going to have to try harder than that. Why didn't you do this, idiot? As a form of negative criticism. You are still telling me what I should have done better, but you're also giving your personal feelings, and instead of just being like, I didn't really like this, you should have done this, you are actively saying it in a way to make me feel bad. And then a negative compliment, which a lot of people would go, how does that work? I've seen worse indicates that you think this is bad, but you've also seen more bad things. So technically, it's a compliment that it's not the worst you've seen, but it's not a compliment in the sense of like you think it could have been better. So next up, we have the thumbnails, and forgive the off-centered area. So we have show 1, show 2, show 3, show 4, show 5, show 6, show 7, show 8, show 9, show PSAs, the possibly asked questions, DD1, DD2, DD3, DD4, DD5, DD6, DD7, DD8, DD9, DDPSAs, and DD10. Then we have Extras 1, which is this one, and Extras 2, which is the next one. Then we have the banner, which if you're on phone, you probably can't see the whole thing, but it's nothing spectacular. It's just the two heads standing on the edges with the main name being right here, and of course the radio station. Originally, I kind of wanted it to be the two halves together, but it didn't quite look right, and I wasn't spending too much time on it, so I decided to do this. It's simple, and I still think it's effective. Now, I'm going to show you what the old poster was going to be. Now, mind you, this was reflective of the original show idea and my inability to really know what to do. So, this is how it originally looked. As you see, there's many issues with it. Number one, it's too many clashing colors. It's hard to really, like, if you're walking by it, you're probably not going to catch your eye on anything but maybe this like red ring, but even then that's not going to be enough to get your attention on all of it. Have like, obviously it's not a literal wall of text, but it feels like a wall of text. You're just kind of looking at it and you're like, I can't really read this. This looks weird. And the background, especially in the middle, is way too bright. Ultimately, it just wasn't a great poster. So after we critiqued it in class, I scrapped it and created this one, which now is a lot more eye-catching. The background looks a lot more balanced. The heads are a nice, touch to it. I included a little QR code for people to scan, stuff like that. And it's more straight to the point of the new show idea. So now we move on to the character designs, because I wanted to kind of show people how I think my characters should look, but I don't want this to be like a quote-unquote canon design, as in like this is how they have to look like no matter what. This is more like how I think they should look, but if you have a different idea for how they should look, please feel free to do whatever you wish. Just, don't go too nuts. Like, if you have a habit of making every guy character tall, some of them are supposed to be shorter, and so on and so forth. And, of course, not sponsored by Hero Forge, because Hero Forge didn't ask me to make them this way. I made them this way because I can't draw. So, starting off is the main man himself, DJ POOL. Here we have his iconic orange and yellow sunglasses. His jacket is actually based off of a jacket I own, but not quite the same. And I don't own these pants or shoes. That's just, I wanted to match. And a close-up of his head. And where would DJ be without his storyteller from the deep, Kuran? As you see, he has his blue and orange goggles. This is his wetsuit, which honestly I kind of wish I made him match more with his goggles. As you see, he's not bald, he's shaved. But if you don't want to draw all this extra stuff, here's what he looks like without the wetsuit. Now we move on to the actual story characters. So starting off is Tristan Swampa. This is how he looked like in his human form. He's pretty simple dude, kind of nonchalant, whatnot. This is how he looks like. And whether it be guy or girl, I show all of their body types in some fashion. Only one example of the girls don't have like pants or tights underneath their skirt. Some of them do have skirts. So I add pants to them. So do not think that they are just flat out, underneath. So continuing on from that, we have him without the jacket. As you can see, he's pretty basic build, nothing too spectacular. But after his run-in with MM, this is how he became this big muscular fish dude. As you see, he's muscular, intimidating, all that kind of stuff. But where would Tristan be without his helpful brother, Trevor? As you see, he has a much more athletic build. He's a bit more smug, all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, he was still not safe from MM's wrath, so he also got turned into a fish dude. And as you see, he's less muscular. He has a few different traits, bigger one being the tail. If you remember back on Tristan's, his was more thin, his is more wide to help him swim better. And his little hair tentacle thingies are longer. Not really for any advantage, I just want their hair to look different. And then this is how he also looks with the crew of Betty's clothes, which you'll see later. This is the hat he has on his head, because it makes him look less bald. So next is, of course, the culprit behind their fish transformations, Meistiga Miraskoten herself. As you see, I want her to be more ethereal, regal, all that kind of stuff. So this is kind of how I made her look. This is a close-up on her hair. Nothing too special, just a better way to reference it. And then, as I said before, she's the only one who doesn't have like regular pants underneath her gown. So I put pants on her. So this is her like general body shape. And as I said before, if you don't quite agree with any of the designs, tweak them however you find fit. I just only ask that you use the original design as a basis. That way you're not having to draw something from the ground up. So now we move on to show 2, and we start with the main pirate himself, Admiral Ace Quinton. This is the color of his crew, this like blue and red looking thing. As you see, he's looking dapper, he's looking happy. Here's a close-up on his hair. He's not bald, he has this kind of like mohawk looking thing. And he's looking very charming. But this is how he looked like before he became the pirate captain. Just a simple admiral. I kind of based it off of the British Navy uniform. He's not British, but that's kind of how I wanted him to look. And as you see, he's not bald, he's shaved. Next up is his best friend, Finn Jenkins, the engineer of the ship. As you see, he has a hammer and a bag which contains like nails and other small tools. He does have all of his fingers, so some of the characters were created way earlier than others, like before I made the rest of the characters. So some of them had like full-on poses before the others, so that's why some of them have their hands closed and others don't. So next up is the champion of the ship, Mary Tay, and this is kind of how she typically looks to most other people. But take off the bottom bit, and as you see, she does have a more masculine-esque build, especially like in the face. But she is still indeed a woman. I included this little detail at the bottom because just to make it more intimidating and edgy and whatnot. But Mary wouldn't go anywhere without her friend Enzo. As you see, he's a tall, lanky boy. There's his missing eye. I will say, when it comes to his hair, I wish it wasn't as dready and wish it was more flowy. I do still like the shape of it. I just want to change up the texture. But then this is how he looks like without his coat. As I said, he's long, he's lanky, and his elbows are way lower than you think. So then we now move on to the 2 mystery characters, which I debated on if I wanted to actually like talk about or not talk about, like include in the slides, because I'm like, nothing was really ever done with them, so no one would have any attachment. But I included them because I figured if you might find their designs intriguing, maybe you might suggest I continue making the full story of Admiral and Betty and whatever. So here we have Gunn, this big, large, imposing dude, the weapon master of the ship. This is his hair without the goggles. And this is him without his coat. As you see, he's large, imposing, and muscular. And same as before, he was in a different pose, so that's why his fist is all balled up, but he does have fingers. And then the second mysterious character is Eliza Runt. She's called Runt because, well, she's small. So that's not her last name. That's technically her nickname. But anyway. And then Hero Forge also does this thing where it creates this little notch between side items if their body isn't, like, large enough, I think. So, I don't know, you can, like, readapt that to however you find fit. Alright, and then next we have the captain of the Siren's Curse herself, Betty Cecil. As you'll see, she looks pretty normal, like a typical pirate queen, but when you get a bit closer to her face, that's when you notice her eyes are a bit different. Her hair, well, you'll find out quickly enough that, like, despite this being her body shape, there's something a bit deceiving about it, because this is her siren form. And as you see, some things don't quite add up. So first off, her hair isn't actually hair, it's just her fins in disguise. Her chest is fake, and she has a more monstrous appearance. So this is how she would actually normally look. The other one is an illusion she creates to throw people off. So next is her closest friend, Admiral Amy, aka Quentin's closest, well, former closest friend. So with her, as you see, she is undead. She's definitely not alive, and especially as you get a bit closer, you see she has some exposed brain there. Underneath the eye patch, she has a missing eye, and this is about where the cannonball hit her face. And more like damaged bits here and there, and her hair is all like patchy and missing. So then this is her general body shape without the coat. Yeah, I figured, if someone really wanted it, this is how she looked like before she died. Pretty simple, pretty nice. Also kind of modeled after the British Navy uniform. Once again, not British. I don't know. It was just easier finding them, or it had more simple colors. At the very least, like especially with the police jacket, it was much easier to replicate than the other. I didn't include any body shape for her because you can literally just take it off of this. It's the same proportions. Alright, next up is the engineer of the ship, Sephiropode. And bigger thing you'll see with her is she does have 8 arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I do not count the legs because she doesn't quite use them like the rest of her arms, so that's why she's still an octopus. And her name is, of course, a pun, which you'll notice some of the characters I have do have puns for name. Sephiropode kind of sounds like cephalopod. And then I had a slight design change, mainly to her face. Underneath her bandana, she is bald. But I also wanted to include this spotty pattern to it to look more like an actual octopus. So next is Sephira's personal friend, Ela. As you see, Ela is kinda modeled after an electric eel. I say kinda because she's not like a one-to-one with one, especially like if we zoom in on her eyes. Usually electric eels only have like dots for eyes, but it looked a bit goofy, so I decided to give her these instead. And then I try to keep her coloring a bit more like the electric eel, but obviously she kind of just looks like a fish turtle hybrid. But like I said, always play around with the designs. So then that next leaves the last two, first being the champion of the ship, Victoria. As you see, she is very, very muscular, more so than Mary, and is a bit more imposing. And this is how she looks like without her mask. Pretty simple face. Hair looking pretty nice. But sadly, she is also known for not being the nicest, as she did curse Jennifer Fly. Did I call her Fly or Flea in the episode? Either way, as you see, I kind of modeled her after a flying fish. Obviously, these are bat wings, so just imagine this without the little lines. And you'll also notice her arms are extremely long, kind of similar to Enzo. And then I excluded the wings so you can actually see her back. Alright, now we move on to show 3, with the main woman herself, Wendy Tidal. Not title, Tidal. This is kind of how she looked like when she was still working at the lab. Wasn't really the happiest. Pretty simple. This is how she looks like without her coat. She has this nice little red and yellow sweater. And this is close up on her head. As you see, also shaved, not bald. But she does have this more floofy hair on the other side. And then, this is how she looked like after she merged with the orb. She didn't gain like an ethereal appearance. She pretty much just looks the same. This is just kind of what she decided to wear from now on. But she wouldn't be where she was now without her pretty much mortal enemy, Kevin, looking very sleazy in some type of fashion. He's not old, he just has silver hair. Um, and instead of a red tie, I gave him a blue tie. Why? Because I wanted to. And this is how he looks like without his coat. Simple man, nothing too spectacular. I didn't include his monster form simply because they didn't really have all the pieces that could work with it or the customization options to pull it off. So that one is just going to have to be left up to interpretation, um, based off of if you read the script or re listen back to it. So next off is show 4, and we have the ever so lovable Fragiko Aquarinite. That's not his last name, they just don't have last names, so it looks like a last name. As you see, he is this kind of like lizardy fish man with a large and imposing frame, but still a somewhat friendly face. This is his father, King Aquarinite. As you see, he's a little bit more slightly faded in color, and he's not as nice looking. This is how he looks like without all his heavy armor. Well, at least some of the heavy armor, like on his chest. And next we move on to Fragiko's mother, Queen Aquarinite. As you see, she has a more vibrant color. This is how she looks a bit more up close, and all of them have pretty much the same head shape, so you can just kind of use this as reference. And then this is how she looks like without her skirt. Yes, she does have pants underneath. And then next we move on to the next species, or at least the only named one, Ketloa Fapress. As you see, she has a very simple design. Very bald. Very, like, sharp-looking facial features. Like I said, pretty simple design. Probably could have done more with her, but I didn't want to go over the top. But someone I did go over the top with is none other than General Macrom Adaevo. Once again, not a last name, that's just his species name. So over here we have his patented missile mace, his monstrous appearance. This is kind of how he looks like without the coat on. Well, at least some of it. As you see, this is where his, where Fragiko's father kind of chopped off his arm and replaced it with metal. But one of the things you might ask is, well, how much exactly did he adapt? Well, this is what a normal Adaevo would look like. Yeah, big difference. So going back to here, he had to do different things like messing with his bite force, sitting in water to gain like fins, puncturing his skin to create these like claw things, toughening his chest, whatnot, so on and so forth. So now we move on to show 5, and of course, as you've all probably, maybe, I don't know, been waiting for, we finally have Xander. Sorry if he doesn't look as impressive as you probably thought he would look, but he wanted to blend in, so that's how he looks. And this is a bit more close-up on his hair, where it's not clipping through his shirt. But now we go back to the actual story characters. First off with Victor Camelli. As you see, also bald, for real this time. Dapper looking suit. This is how he looks like with and without his powers being activated. Very simple, very nice. And of course, we can't forget his sister, Annie Camelli. Also pretty simple. This right here isn't a shirt, it's actually bandages from where she got shot. And I really like the hair I chose for her. It looked pretty nice. So next to Annie, we have Mama Camelli, because I still haven't chosen a name for her. Which, for, like, King Aquarinite, Queen Aquarinite, Mama Camelli, Papa Camelli, Uncle Camelli, any other character that doesn't have, like, an actual name, feel free to give them your own. Um, yeah. So anyway, a very nice looking lady, a nice pearl necklace, nice updo, stuff like that. That's how she looks like. Once again, she does wear pants. Um, and then next we have Papa Camelli, very squirrely looking dude. Definitely looks a bit older. This is where I finally started adding like a lot of the stubble texture to the faces. Um, it's how he looks like without his little suit jacket. A nice orangey. Don't really ask me why I went with the Halloween theme. Well, actually, no. The reason why is because when I originally made Victor, I gave him kind of Halloweeny looking colors. So I just kind of kept it, and then I just gave everyone else Halloweeny themed colors. So if you want to consider that a bonus, his favorite holiday is Halloween. And then next to the father, we have the Uncle Camille, looking a lot more tougher and more willing to brawl than his father. Other than the fact, his father's bit. So, lastly, we have Sally, the helpful nurse who helped Victor save Annie again. And this is how she looks like without her coat. Very simple scrubs. Very nice. Now we move on to episode 6, starting with Talia. Looking a little bit sad, cozy, the works. This is how she looks like without her jacket. Then we have Sean. Once again, not old, just silver hair. Also played around with stubble a bit with him. I would say the only thing I probably wouldn't agree with is the shoes. They look a bit too bright. So feel free to readapt them however you wish. And his eyes are gray, not blue. They look blue, but they're gray. And he also has one singular earring on his ear, which I was thinking could be like a small talisman. Then we have him without his jacket. As you see, he's a bit more muscular. Then we have Derek, looking scared as ever. Once again, tall and lanky. He's the one that I would prefer to have this hair than Enzo. He also has a bit of mustache stubble right there. Then lastly, we have Frank, looking like a Frank. Then lastly, on to episode 7, and I say lastly because I didn't include episode 9 because there are no new characters, and episode 8 I want to leave up for interpretation for everyone. Like, I don't want any specific designs for that one. That one could be more of a, like, shadowy puppet. Like I feel like if that were to be like animated or something, it would be shown with shadow puppets. It would not be full-on characters. So, the last one is episode 7. And starting off is Duke Mickey. As you see, he is a cyborg. He has artificial arms, legs, part of his jaw, even his hair, and his eyes. I really like this design that they had there. And he has a bit of his old hair still there. And of course, Duke Mickey wouldn't have gotten anywhere if it weren't for Eileen Nexus, looking tall. Well, she looks tall, but trust me, she's about the same height without heels as Mickey. She has one singular earring over here, which is being blocked by the 79. Yes, that's how many slides there have been. She has longer, not like sharp, just longer nails. And this is her without her little like roby attachment thingy. And that just about does it for everything. Thank you for watching, and I guess I will see you in the Extras 2 video where I go over all the scripts. And I sound extremely tired. Have a great day.